This is a demonstration of the Meshy Create and Meshy plugin that allows you to use Meshy created content in Talespire without having to have Unity Editor or Tailweaver downloaded and installed. Okay, so when I started this project, I wanted to integrate Meshy directly into Talespire, but it soon became evident that that's not really practical because Meshy does take a while to create the content, especially if you're using the free tier and if you happen to have hit a time when there's a lot of people queuing stuff up, your creation process can take very long. I had a few samples where it took me about 26 minutes to create a single object because there was lots of people in the queue. I've also had different times where it took much shorter, but still it definitely wasn't a you request it and in seconds you have it. So in the end, it was decided to instead create a standalone Meshy Create application that a GM can use ahead of time before the session to create things in Meshy, and this will create a file that the Meshy plugin can then read and bring that content into Talespire without having to have the Unity Editor or Tailweaver project installed. So basically, the Meshy Create is the little application to make the requests to create content using Meshy, and then the Meshy plugin is what allows Angel to recognize Meshy files because they are using a different file format than the traditional Angel assets in order to avoid having to have the Unity Editor or Tailweaver project installed. So the Meshy plugin then teaches the Angel plugin how to recognize and render Meshy objects. So let's go through the process. So first, you are going to have to create a Meshy account and go over to the API and get your API key. So let me demonstrate that. Getting your API key for Meshy is a one-time process that we're going to need to do to set up the Meshy Create in order for it to use your account. Now again, if you are using the free tier, you should get 200 credits every month. You can go and get a upgraded plan, which costs starting at I think $16 per month. That gets you a lot more credits if you want to create a lot of content. So regardless of which plan you have, you can then go over to API here, and here is the option to create an API key. So I've already created one here, so I'm not going to go through this process again, but essentially you click the button right here to create API key. It'll ask you for a name. You can put whatever you really like there, and it will create a key. It's just basically an ugly string that you want to copy and save. Be really careful because there is no way to retrieve this. Right here you can see part of it, but Meshy does not have any options to actually retrieve the key once it showed it to you, and they say in the documentation that not even the admins for Meshy can do that. So if you lose your key, you're done for. Essentially, if you lose your key, you're going to have to create a new one and use that instead. Okay, so once you have your API key, we're going to do a one-time setup on the Meshy Create so that it knows to use that API key so you don't have to keep repeating it. And then we'll be ready to go. So let's flip over to our Meshy Create. So you're going to need to locate the spot where you have your Meshy Create placed, in whatever folder that is. And then you're going to simply use any editor. Notepad is good enough because it's pretty simple. any text editor to open up the file called make.bat. Okay, this is a very simple batch file. All it's doing is calling Meshy.Create with the name and prompt that you have provided here, and then it provides the API key, which is what you're going to have to replace here with the one that you got from the API website. And then here is the location of your plugins install folder. So you're going to need to update that based on your own R2Modman installation. Once we've done that, that's only a one-time configuration, and we are now ready to use Meshy.Create to create some content. Okay, so now that we want to create some Mesh content, all we do is at the command prompt in the folder where we have Meshy.Create, we're going to type make. Then we need to give this a name. So I'm going to go with and then in quotation marks, you're going to provide the prompt that you're passing to Meshy to create your content. So okay, so we're doing the Energizer Bunny, pink stuffed bunny with sunglasses beating a large drum attached to its body. Okay, we're going to fire that off, and now we're going to see a text graphical bar running through. Your bar may start off first going from max to low with the keyword queue. That's if there's people in the queue. You first have to wait until you're queued up. Then it will go through the create process, and then lastly it will go through the refine process. And you'll get little progress bars showing the progress. Sometimes Meshy likes to stop at 99 and wait there for a while, so you might see the progress bar almost full or full and still be waiting for a while. That's okay. Just let it do its thing. So you can see that we went through the create process pretty quickly this time. The refine is a little slower, but it's also going relatively fast, but nowhere near instantaneous, which is what you would want, or close to instantaneous is what you would want if it was integrated directly into Talespire. So this is why we've made it a standalone application that the GM can use ahead of the session to create content without needing the Unity editor or Tailweaver project installed. So when this thing finishes, it will automatically spawn the portrait view of the asset, so you can kind of see what it looks like before you even go into Talespire. And it will just pull that up in whatever the default viewer for your machine is set to. Almost there. Okay, So there's our Energizer Bunny. That's actually not too bad. As I said, it showed us the portrait view of the asset that it created, and now the asset is created. Okay, so now that our asset has been created, we can go into Talespire and see that it is working. Now, just to give you a little bit of background, the Meshy plugin uses the same menu as Angel. In fact, what it does is the Meshy plugin tells Angel how to recognize Meshy objects, and it offers to render them for Angel. So what that means is you can still use your Angel menu to select those assets. For the user just using the menu, it will look like any other Angel asset, but underneath, when it looks at a Meshy object, Angel will say, well, I don't know how to handle that, but luckily the Meshy plugin will say, oh, no problem, I do know how to handle that, let me take care of that for you. And that's what's going to make that Meshy object appear in Talespire. Now, you might be interested to know where those files are actually kept, and that is, if you go to your plugins folder, you will see that there is a folder called Lord Ash's Meshy Create, and in there you will find the files. Right now it includes the portrait files, but those portrait files are not actually used. They may actually be gone in future revisions. I'm just using them right now for a little testing. Otherwise, all the information is in the UOBJ file. That includes all of the information that would typically be in the info.txt file, if you're familiar with making Angel assets. It also includes the mesh information for the Meshy object, the texture, and the portrait. All of that is in one file. You may be interested to know what a UOBJ file is, because that's not a typical file. What it is it's a special file that I created for the purpose of Meshy objects, and the content is very similar to an OBJ file, which is a very common format, but it just rearranges it a little bit to make it easier to apply to the object, to turn it into whatever is needed. So it's a variation on the OBJ file, and it also includes, as I said, the additional information of the info.txt file and the portrait, texture, and so on. Okay, so let's dive into Talespire. Remember that if you are doing this over and over again, trying different things and placing your stuff in the same folder, which is normally the case because it all goes into that Meshy folder, you're going to want to re-register your assets. So if you go to your Angel plugin, go to cache, there is a re-register all button, and you're going to want to do that. Otherwise, if you've added new assets to the folder, it will not show up. And once we've done that, we can go and run Talespire. Now, of course, because we re-registered our assets, it's going to have to run through registering them all again, which can take a little while. So sit back, have a coffee, and let it do its thing before opening up the board. The registering process seems to be very slow, but after a little while it speeds up. I believe that the reason for that is all of this main page animation by Talespire plus Talespire starting up. So I'm thinking of making a standalone registration application that can be used instead, where it would register all your assets before the game, and of course, because it would be a standalone, not running Talespire at the same time, it would probably register a little bit faster. But don't worry, registration will not be removed from Angel, so if you choose not to use that standalone application, if I ever create it, you'll always be able to register through Angel like this. Now, come on. Suck. Okay, so now let's create a new board. Surprise, surprise, we have no Meshy objects here because, well, it's a new board. Okay, so as I said, the Meshy assets appear in the Angel menu. So if I open up the main Angel menu, I've got my regular Angel menu, but you will see that there is a category called Meshy, and now I've got my Meshy assets here. So again, it looks just like any other Angel assets, but under the hood, the Meshy plugin takes over and helps draw that. So now, let's bring it out. And there is our Energizer Bunny. Look at that. So that is a Meshy asset. At no point did we need to have Unity Editor installed. At no point did we open up Tailweaver to create this asset. This just came from Meshy, then got got adjusted by the Meshy Create program, and then Meshy plugin allowed us to see this in Talespire. So that is how you can use Meshy Create to leverage the power of Meshy and get it into Talespire. And that's about it.